Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'd like to welcome everybody. Did everybody have a great lunch? I thought it was fabulous. So thank you, Danversport. So today we will open our program with a presentation which was going to be with Senator Tarr, but he has sent his trusty cohort, Kristen McDonald, and she will perform a presentation for us. I just wanted to say, you can come up, but I just wanted to say something about Senator Tarr. He serves as a Republican member and minority leader of the Massachusetts Senate. And since 1995, he has represented the 1st Essex and Middlesex District. He is a former member of the Massachusetts House of Representatives. Senator Tarr was born just a few years ago in Gloucester. So I was going to mention to him that he probably represents the younger generation in this room if he had come today. And I was also going to put in a word that we were going to wonder when he was going to send his genealogy to our group, because Barbara is always looking for articles to publish and tag. So instead of welcoming Senator Tarr, we will welcome Kristen McDonald today. So thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome. Thank you, Diane. Oh, geez, the pressure is on when I hear she's here for a presentation. I'm really not. Okay. Does this sound? Can you hear me? Okay. There's no real formal presentation, but I do have to laugh at my job because I'm put in these situations where to give myself credit, I'm a staffer for Senator Tarr. There are 13 of us. I always had a fear of public speaking. I truthfully, people thought I could do it more than I felt I could do it. So I started working for the senator a few years ago when he landed his Senate position. It encompassed Newburyport and Salisbury, where I'm from. I live in Newbury, which I'm learning so much about. All these settlers. I know about the rock. I brought my husband on one of our first dates to a bike ride at the rock where the settlers landed off of Cottage Road, if any of you have been there. I'm tried and true Newbury girl, born and raised. I've been there for 54 years, lived in Newburyport for 15. So my roots run deep. So beyond my job, my job started because of that connection to where I grew up. So I was put in line for this job by Frank Cousins, former sheriff of Essex County. He called me telling me that Senator Tarr needed a staffer. I was raising my 3 kids. My oldest was a senior in high school at the time, and I wasn't sure what the job was, if I was going to get paid for the job and what it was, but it was basically to introduce Bruce to Newburyport and Salisbury constituents, and it's just been the best job. So he's a wonderful, wonderful man. I had to interview him before I took it to know what he stood for, and I felt very, very good with my decision, and it's been a wonderful opportunity. He is 19 communities deep with his role. So today his role is to be at the legislature, like he's running a formal session. So he would be here if he weren't locked and loaded into that obligation today. But I'm sure most of you know, does make his way around his communities. And when he can't, he sends me or 2 other district liaisons. So it's a wonderful job. I don't even know what to say about this event. I'm like beside myself. I've got a whole table of new friends and connections and probably relatives. Literally, like Nancy aside me here, we found out that my one childhood street in Rowley that I frequented weekly, my parents' best friends who I worked for in Boston after college for close to 10 years, the Barneys, they lived on Bennett Hill Road. Sure enough, Nancy, born and raised Bennett Hill. Her mother-in-law is my childhood cafeteria leader. I live in the neighborhood of her mother-in-law. She trick-or-treats on my street. I can't even tell you what's happening to me. And North Reading represented. My son's girlfriend's a North Reading girl. We haven't run deep, but we have other connections. So it's been a really fun day, and I'm constantly asking questions. My husband's a Newburyport police detective, and before we met, I knew my relatives. The half of them were on the PD, and my husband and I met running, found out he was in the police academy, so he works with most of my relatives. I don't even know all my genealogy, but I do know that the former mayor, Sullivan, Dick Sullivan, I don't know if anyone, he brought me, I was always been intrigued by my roots, so I haven't taken time yet to do the full, but I have a packet. in my file cabinet of the Reardons, and that's my father. That's my maiden name. So I'm really interested in this, and I didn't even know what I was coming to. It was 10 o'clock, and I realized I had to be at Danversport in an hour, took a shower, and here I am, and I don't want to leave. So anyway,
You don't have to.
I know, but I do have other work to do, but I'm enjoying myself immensely. So I'm here to present, because he can't, this official state citation, which Bruce laughs. Most people, when they get a citation, think it's something bad. In the case of my husband's work, it is, but in this role, it is not. It's just a way to honor a special moment. So this is sent in from Bruce himself. A Commonwealth of Massachusetts state citation reads that be it known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to Essex Society of Genealogists in recognition of your 50th anniversary, and be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its best wishes for continued success, that the citation be duly signed by the President of the Senate and attested to and copy thereof transmitted by the Clerk of the Senate. It's offered up by the President of the Senate, Karen Spilka, attested to by Michael Hurley, the Clerk, offered up by Bruce Tarr, dated today, September 25th, 2025. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And this is for all of you.
Aw. I feel like I was told I was going to be welcomed with open arms, and I can't have felt that anymore. So thank you for welcoming me with open arms.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
You're welcome. Oh, do you want to? Should we do for Brute? Can we get this photo for him? I'll let my friend. She'll text it to me. My new friends. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So this is for all of you.
Thank you, ladies. I like the moral
Very good.
support. Thank you. I wasn't prepared, so it's nice that I pulled it off. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, geez. Oh boy, I'll be co-emceeing it next. Here you go. You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen, very much. This Essex Society genealogist is happy to and excited to accept this wonderful proclamation from the Commonwealth. Thank you. I would now like to introduce and to welcome David Dearborn. David remembers being fascinated with genealogy when he discovered some royal genealogy charts in his 10th grade history class. Growing up in Andover, Mass., with grandparents living nearby, he was able to interview the elderly members of his family, but they gave him only a little bit of information. Later, he found some old family Bibles which took the family history back to the mid-1700s. He was now off and running. He was then able to connect to an earlier Dearborn genealogy. David was a charter member of the Essex Society of Genealogists. His membership number is number 3. David joined the New England Historic and Genealogical Society staff in 1976. Let's give David a warm welcome. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Diane. It's a pleasure to be here today. And before I get started with my formal presentation, I would just like to say that this organization, having reached its milestone, it's the work of an awful lot of people over the years, whether you have served as an officer or helped with researching problems in the library, or do we need the microphone? Is that a little better? Or helping to collate the magazine, proofreading, and so forth. So I would like to see all of the present and former officers of the organization take a bow, if you would, please. Whether you've ever served at any time. Thank you. Well, the organization kind of intertwines with my own experience in genealogy, and Diane already has alluded to that a little bit. We all got started in genealogy one way or another, and my story began, as Diane said, when I was in high school. I got bitten by the bug. I'd always been interested in genealogy. But things were a little different back in 1975 in terms of how genealogy was done. There was no internet, obviously. If you wanted to look up ancestors, you had to get in the car and drive either to a library or to a courthouse or to a cemetery. The best you could do, maybe aside from that, would be to get yourself to a local branch of the LDS Family History Centers. Nowadays, for those of you who are familiar with Linfield, there's the library right there, but that didn't exist back in 1975. The closest family history centers were either in Weston on Route 30 or up in Nashua, New Hampshire. So it was kind of different. Think about 1975 if you can. Gerald Ford was our president. A first-class stamp cost 10 cents. The current movies at the time were The Godfather Part 2, The Towering Inferno, Murder on the Orient Express, and The Stepford Wives. A dollar bill at that time would be worth $6 today. So it was really a very, very different time. And I was already bitten by the bug at that time, but I was all alone. I didn't know anybody else. I didn't know if there were other people out there who shared my interest. My parents weren't against what I was doing, but they really weren't really terribly encouraging. They answered my questions as best as they could, and so did at least my grandfather. My grandmother was very reluctant to talk to me at all because she was afraid I'd uncover the skeletons in the closet. And of course I did eventually anyway, although despite her fears, it turned out she had a great many very ordinary and perfectly respectable people in her ancestry, but I had yet to dig all of that up. So I was kind of just working in a vacuum. I just didn't know whether there were any other people out there who shared my interest or not. And then one day, I think I was kind of at loose ends. At the time, I think I had gone back to living with my parents in Andover. I had recently acquired a master's degree in history from Northeastern, but I had no idea what I was going to do with it. In fact, I only went to graduate school because when I got my bachelor's degree, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. So I thought, well, I'll kick the can down the road a little bit and just keep on going to school. So I went to Northeastern and managed to string out my master's degree for 3 years. So there I was in 1975. At that time, I had a part-time job working just a block from NEHGS, the New England Historic Genealogical Society, or HistGen as we call it, working for the Simmons College School of Social Work, which was at that time located right on Com Ave, about a block or so from HistGen. It was just a part-time job in the morning, so I had my afternoons to go over to the library and hang out. And that was eventually how I got the job, but I still didn't know anyone. At that time, genealogy, at least in my mind, being in my mid-20s at that time, was mostly elderly people who had probably either the time, the money, or the inclination to do genealogy. I was kind of an outlier in a way. And then one day, I spotted a notice in our local newspaper, the Lawrence Evening Tribune. And it read something like this. Actually, it did read like this. Genealogist plan meeting. The Essex County chapter of the Massachusetts Society of Genealogists will meet Saturday at 1 p.m. at the Linfield Public Library. Election of officers will be held. Applications for charter memberships will be open and available to those who are interested in their ancestry or family genealogy. For further information, contact Marcia Wiswall, Director, Linfield Public Library. Well, I was intrigued. Here's a chance to meet other people who are like-minded. So I went. It was Saturday, March 8th, and there were about 45-ish or so of us who were there at the old meeting house on the Linfield Common, and I was probably the only person of my age there. Everybody else was about my parents' age, which is probably why I'm here today. If anybody else was at that meeting, please raise your hand. I was there on day, Don, there, okay, there we go. Well, maybe you should be giving this talk, or we could co-give it. Pack rat that I am, I still have all my membership cards from this organization going back to 1975. And it's interesting because if you look at the wording of this notice, it's as if the society already existed. It didn't. It was something that Marcia was hoping would get off the ground. For all she knew, nobody would even show up. Well, we did. And here we are today. You may not be aware that for the first 5 years of its existence, ESOG was not an independent organization. Instead, it was the Essex County chapter of the Massachusetts Society of Genealogists. And how did that all happen? Well, Marcia, who really was kind of the lodestar of the organization in the early days and for many, many years, as I said, was director of the Linfield Public Library. And she was very interested in local history. In fact, she had published a number of articles in the Lynn Item about early Linfield history. But she was probably like me in a way. She needed some kind of a spark to get her going. And she heard about a gentleman named Robert Tart, who lived in Ashland and was very interested in genealogy and was interested in starting a statewide genealogical organization. And he presented a genealogy workshop for beginners at the local LDS library in Weston, and Marcia went to it and met Bob, and her enthusiasm showed. And Bob approached her and said, would you be interested in organizing a chapter in Essex County? And she said, this is great, what a great idea. So she did. She placed those ads in all of the various newspapers around Essex County, and sure enough, people like me and Dawn and others came out of the woodwork. And there we were. By May, there were about 90 individuals who had signed up subsequently who were deemed as charter members. And looking at that list, it's interesting to look at the demographics. About a third of the membership lived in either Lynn or Linfield. And nearly everybody in the group lived in Essex County with just a handful of others outside. We had a few from Wakefield and Reading. We had one member from Stoneham, which turned out to be Marcia herself. We had a member from Chelmsford, one from Salem, New Hampshire, two from New York, and one from Delaware. We had election of officers. Marcia, of course, was elected as president. Helen Bosworth, who served for many, many years as the secretary, served as vice president and treasurer. And Catherine Little, who had formerly worked at the Lynn Public Library, was elected secretary. One of the very first things that the chapter did was to start a 10-week genealogy course for beginners with Marcia as the instructor. And this was held at the Linfield Public Library Wednesday evenings. And 10 weeks, it cost $5 to register. Those were the days. As I said, $1 went a little further than it does today. Another early effort of the society was to put together a surname interest group, or interest list, I should say, and also index the 1850 census. The meetings in the old days originally were held in the old meeting house on Linfield Common, usually on either the second or third Saturday of the month, starting at noon. We all brought brown bag lunches. I usually had my PB&J sandwich. The society kicked in coffee, soda, and some people would bring in cookies and baked goods and so forth. And we would all throw $1 or $2 into a little basket to just help to defray the expenses. From the get-go, we were fortunate to have some genealogical heavy hitters in our group. Among those was Mary Thresher from Marblehead, who was a CG and had just the year before edited volume 9 of the published Essex Quarterly Court Records, published by the Essex Institute. Eleanor Bishop, who was librarian at the Baker Business Library at Harvard University, and Ludovine Hamilton and Kay Little, who both had formerly been librarians at the Lynn Public Library. From the very beginning, we instituted the covered dish show and tells for the December meeting, which became kind of a tradition where the ladies would provide either a main dish, a salad, or a dessert, depending upon your pecking order in the alphabet. And every year this would rotate. Gents would pay $1 until 1992, and went up to $2, and we would have a nice covered dish lunch. And all the other meetings were brown bag. And of course, we normally did not meet in the summer. In May of '75, there was the first organizational meeting of the Mass Society of Genealogists, presided over by Bob Tart. And this was held in Weston, and ESOG was one of the chapters, including also Middlesex, Worcester, Plymouth, and Berkshire, I think, were the original chapters. In 1975 also, the Essex chapter began publishing its own newsletter for consumption within the group. By the fall of '75, we had also put together some pretty ambitious field trips. We didn't just meet at the old meeting house. We had field trips to the Cape Ann Historical Society, the Saugus Iron Works, the Andover Textile Museum, and the Danvers Historical Society. In 1976, the dues were $3 with $4.50 for families. You couldn't go wrong for that. It wasn't very long before tension started to build between our little group and the state organization. In May of '76, Mr. Tart sent a rather sharply worded letter to ESOG ordering us to cease and desist from efforts to publish the MASOG journal on our own. I had an opportunity last week to go back and look over the old MASOG magazine, and it really was a pretty pitiful effort at that time. Don't want to do that. Yeah, well, some of those are mine too. Yeah, so great. There we go. Okay, yeah, that goes out. All right. Those of you who belong to MASOG, in addition to ESOG, and subscribe to the MASOG, it has very, very much improved over the last few years. So don't think I'm not knocking on MASOG in any way. Here we go. In 1977, the chapter started putting together an effort to index the 1850 federal census. In 1850, Essex County had a population of over 131,000. And for each individual, little 3x5 cards were filled out. A member named Burrell Stollard was the principal person behind this. He personally recorded the cards for more than half the towns in the state. Just an amazing, amazing project. In June of '77, we had to raise the dues up to $6 for individuals and $8 for families. By 1980, the situation had kind of reached a head as far as our relations with MASOG went. It was just getting increasingly sour. And part of the problem was that Mr. Tart wished to be president for life and basically tell the other chapters what to do. And there was very little accounting in terms of where the money was going. So we voted to disassociate ourselves from the state. And at a meeting held on June 21st, 1980, the executive board, of which I was a member, signed a formal proposal to withdraw from MASOG effective in January of '81. This was ratified after discussion at the September meeting, where after discussion, 79 members voted unanimously to withdraw, including one phone call from a member in California, Paula Owen, who also voted to withdraw. So there we were. Another project which we did, let's see where it is here. Here we go. Oh. Anybody ever see this? Oh, yes. Yes, okay. This wasn't really an official ESOG project, but it is kind of indirectly. This is the first edition of the Genealogist Handbook for New England Research, which now looks, Yeah. Look something like this, okay?
Who's going to win that today?
This is not what this actually looks like. It's probably twice as fat as it should be because of all the inserts and newspaper clippings and things that I've put in here. This was really Marcia's baby. Marcia, at the time, that is in 1980, was the president of I think the New England Library Association, and which is not really a genealogical group, but a group of librarians. But she conceived this project that every New England state is a little bit different, and all have their own unique records. And wouldn't it be nice to have in just one place where all the record repositories are, what their hours are, where they're located, what records they have, and so forth. So she put this together, and other people who were on the committee included Robert Charles Anderson. Most of you know who he was. Tom Kemp from the Ferguson Library in Connecticut. Joan Hayden from the Maine Historical Society. Dennis Lessier, who was librarian at the Berkshire Athenaeum in Pittsfield. Dwayne Crabtree from the Belmont Public Library, and yours truly. So we were all assigned a state in New England to go around and pull that information together. I did the state of New Hampshire. And of course, in those days, as I said, there was no way to gather that information remotely. You either had to get on the phone, or better yet, get in the car, drive to the different libraries and courthouses and record repositories and note that information. It took an awful lot of work, but I enjoyed it very much because I was able to go to some of these places which I had not been to before, including driving all the way up to Lancaster to the Coos County Courthouse, which I had never been to before. So it was a real eye-opener for me. So this was the result. And because of Marcia's position in Linfield, ESOG ended up kind of managing the publication and distribution of this. This sold for $3.50. And it was so popular, I think the first print run was maybe 1,500 copies. It went through at least 3 printings within the next year. So it was really quite really a seminal event, I think, in the organization. Marcia, unlike Mr. Tart, really, she was very happy to have been the guiding light and founder of the organization, but she wasn't really that interested in leading the organization. She served as president for several terms, but her real interest was in publication, and she was very aware of the reputation that quality genealogical journals such as the New England Historical and Genealogical Register, the American Genealogist, and other similar journals had. She was interested in putting together a journal, a quarterly journal, which would be similar in content and quality to what existed in those magazines, and she succeeded dramatically. In 1981, she produced the first of 80 issues of the TEG, which of course still goes today, but she was the editor for the first 20 years of its existence. She was aware of not only the great amount of genealogical information that is out there to be gleaned, but the fact that Essex County had become something of a genealogical desert. Back in the old days, we had the Essex Institute Historical Collections, which for almost 80 years produced a lot of genealogy. But around World War II, they went really more for history and dropped the genealogy, which was really a shame because in its day, it did an awful lot. And then in the early 1900s, there were about a dozen volumes of the Essex Antiquarian, which was published privately by a Salem lawyer named Sidney Purley, who did wonderful, wonderful work. But from that time on, there really was nothing. And from day one, TEG stood out as a quality journal, and that attracted not only a lot of attention from other genealogists, but also helped the organization to attract members from all over the United States who wanted to subscribe, who had roots in Essex County. By the 1980s, I don't know what the membership was exactly, although I've got a lot of the old membership list, but it was definitely into the many hundreds thanks to TEG. In 1985, Marcia organized a small group of people to start researching the early families of Lynn, of which she was very interested. There was quite a subset of members who were interested in early Lynn and Lynnfield area families. Marcia didn't do it all alone. The other people on the committee were Eleanor Tucker, Marion McDonald, and Rosalind Listernick. They divided up the alphabet, and each were responsible for producing articles on the various early Lynn families, and these were published in TEG. And there were other people who had been researching some of these families on their own who contributed these, and they were published serially in TEG over the years. And in 2004, these articles were assembled and published in a large book, almost 1,000 pages, called Early Lynn Families, including Lynnfield, Nahant, Saugus, and Swampscott, published by Higginson Books. And that was really one of the big success stories of the organization. By 1995, ESOG had over 800 members all over the United States and probably elsewhere too. Just a tremendous organization. So my part in the organization has been fairly small over the years, although I went back and looked. I think I've spoken to the group maybe over a dozen times, I think, over the years. In fact, I had forgotten that I spoke at the 20th anniversary of this group back in 1995, although I didn't speak on this subject of the history. I just happened to be the speaker that day. If any of you are interested in maybe another look at the early years, there's a very nice article in volume 20 of TEG that talks about the first 20 years of the organization. I'm standing here now, and I see a lot of gray hairs out there. I'm glad to know that even though I've gotten older as well, the long-term memory is still there. The short-term memory, not so good. My wife will attest, I lose my glasses umpteen times a day, but I still remember those early days of the organization. And I don't know whether there'll be any of you who will be at the 100th anniversary organization of this meeting in 50 years and say, I was there when Dave Dearborn gave that talk on the early years of the society. So with that, I congratulate this organization on 50 years and wish you success in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, David, very
Oh.
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for your talk.
Put my creds back. That's mine too. There you go. Okay.
Go ahead. Let's give a nice thank you to David for his great talk and speech about the early years of ESOG. Thank you. I would now like to welcome Helen Breen. After graduating from Emmanuel College, Helen immediately began teaching English at various Essex County high schools, to include Lynn and Lynnfield. Her career in education actually spanned 60 years. Helen also had a keen interest in history, which led to her close friendship with Marcia Wiswald Lindbergh, the Lynnfield Library Director and founder of the Essex Society of Genealogists. As an English teacher and historian, Helen wrote many articles for TEG and local community newspapers. Helen would like to tell us about her close friend, Marcia Wiswald Lindbergh. Welcome,
Thank you,
Helen.
Diane. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you.
David, I think I remember you from those days. And that was a beautiful tribute that you gave to Marcia. May I ask for a show of hands? How many knew Marcia? Okay. Well, you were fortunate. Let me say is this working? Okay.
Yeah.
I was not into genealogy. I was into local history. I do live in Linfield, and I was going through my local history period. And of course, Marcia was the director of the Linfield Public Library. She had so many hats. I had forgotten about the handbook that she wrote, but it's just incredible how many benches she took on. Let's just say her dates were 1926 to 2015. I regret to say that the date of her death is unknown to anyone that I know. I don't know whether you're familiar with that, but there was never any record that anyone that I knew in Linfield could ever find regarding when she died. She was living in Florida at the time. But let's just start by saying she was born in Lynn. She came from impeccable Yankee roots. It was very amazing how many of relatives she had who had really were among the founders of New England, including the Tapleys and the Mudges. Did anyone connected to the Tapleys? Okay, that's an old shoe family in Lynn. Her father was an engineer from the GE, and she and her family moved to Linfield when Linfield was expanding in the 1950s. Her parents were very involved in all types of activities there. Marcia graduated from Bates College, and I had a friend who was a contemporary of Marcia's, and she chuckled and said, Marcia was really a Betty co-ed. And if you knew Marcia, you can see that she was. She was very popular, dynamic personality. And after she had 4 children, and then she was very involved in the Salem Country Club, and she said to me one day, Helen, I've had enough golf and tennis. I want to do something else. And she did. Can I hear? Okay. Is it better? Okay. She became totally immersed, as David well described her interests. Nobody could cover all of Marcia's interests, but she went to library school, I believe, at Simmons. She got her degree, and then she became the director of the Linfield Public Library. And her dates there were 1967 to 1988. So she served 21 years, and she was just a dynamic director of the library. And she was very closely aligned with Historical Society, which is how I knew Marcia. And her accolade there was that she put the whole catalog online. This is back in the early 80s. Linfield was the second community in Massachusetts to go online. And I remember one time going with Marcia to a conference of librarians in Concord, and she was treated like royalty because she was so forward thinking, and that was an enormous job. And another talent that Marcia had was her ability to see talent in others and to draw them in. She didn't put it online herself, but she had a tremendous group of people who helped her to do that. And another thing that she did is she ran the bicentennial. She and another man who was very prominent in Linfield. They ran the bicentennial in 1976, and let me tell you, it was fabulous. It was just an enormous event. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see that type of event occur this year in Linfield, but that's another story. She also took the old history of Linfield by a man named Wellman, and which was published in 1895, and under the direction with many people helping her, came up. I almost brought the book, but I didn't because I didn't want to lose it. Okay, I would be lost without it. Published the history of Linfield up until from 1895, when Wellman history ends, up until the bicentennial in 1976. And it's just a magnificent volume. She, because I wrote many articles about the history of Linfield, probably too many for some people's taste. But anyway, I used that volume so much. It was so well indexed. It was so clear. It was just, maybe you people in genealogy didn't realize that she was doing that on the side, plus running the library. Okay, so then we go down to her founding, as David has explained about the society and how it was founded, and then TEG. Now remember, in those days, she had to type everything herself. And she would say to me, Helen, what do you got? What do you got? I like to take your stuff because I don't have to do anything to it. I just have to type it over again because I was doing articles for the Historical Society and so on. And she did it all herself. There was no cut and paste. There was no attachments, okay? So I enjoyed working with Masha. And I gave several talks at the society about, the Addams family, not the monsters, the four generations. The four generations. So in other words, it was a very general topic. And then the Lowell family, the Lowell Institute, the whole bit. And of course, the Boston Irish. So she was just totally involved in this. And her reputation spread. As I said, I remember going to that conference in Concord when she was just so well received because she was in the midst of doing this enormous task of putting the material online. And also at the Historical and Genealogical Society, I was, for some reason, an elected member of the Massachusetts Historical Society and the Colonial Society of Massachusetts. Now, where's David? You remember the Colonial Society? Yeah. I haven't been for a while, but I'm still a member. Anyway, when I said I was from Linfield at HistGen, do you know Masha Wiswell? I mean, these people were just so, excited. She had published that handbook, I believe, David, which I never used because, again, I didn't do my own genealogy because I had a great grandfather who had 7 children, and then I gave that up. But one of my best memories was a beautiful day in the summer in Ipswich. She used to like to take me along. I think she was a mentor. She could see that I was really interested and in history and such. And we went to Ipswich and then we went to lunch. And she encouraged me, this is probably in the late 80s, to get a computer. I said, I don't need a computer, I can type. And she was talking about this Wang word processor. And I said, what do you mean there's a little screen in the words? I had no idea what she was talking about. It only took me 10 years more to get a computer, but I finally did. And again, after she retired, she finally published that early families of Lynn, Nahant, Swampscott, all of those towns. And again, as David mentioned, with the help of others, she was really, that's why she could accomplish so much. She had the idea. She worked herself very hard, but she knew how to include the talents of others. And she published that. And as I say, at the time of her death, we don't know what happened. I know she moved to Florida. And I'm just going to read, I have an article there in TEG, I forget when, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I submitted it, having to do with remembering Masha, and this is how I ended it. As I mentioned above, I was interested in local history more than genealogy in the 80s, but enjoyed attending several meetings of ESOG. I appreciated the enthusiasm and camaraderie of the researchers over their brown bag lunches. While Masha's Essex County roots were very accessible, and I must say impeccable, they were, she supported the challenges of all members in their investigations. I recall how pleased she was at one meeting to announce that the Linfield Library had acquired materials, that's in the Masha Wiswell room, obviously, on French Canadians, history and genealogy. She was also thrilled when a newcomer at one meeting said he was pursuing his Greek roots. Recall, this was before the advantages of doing research on the internet. Masha was a person of tremendous energy and vision, both of which were most beneficial to Linfield Public Library and to ESOG. The date of her passing remains uncertain to us at this point. A rich irony considering the meticulous care she took in her genealogical researches. But no matter. One thing I know, Masha would be thrilled to see her legacy carried on through the work of ESOG and the continuous publication of TEG. Keep up the good work and congratulations on the 50th anniversary. It was excellent. And by the way, the lunch was very good, I have to say, wasn't it? Delicious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
about Marshall as well.
Mhm.
I would now like to welcome Donald Dolliver.
Yeah.
As a descendant of the first settlers of Marblehead, Massachusetts, Don has also lived in Marblehead his entire life. After graduating from high school and college, Don became a history teacher, earning Outstanding History Teacher in the Nation
Mm-hmm.
in
Yay.
1982
You
at
did.
Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. He finished his career as an acting principal. Don was an early member of ESOG and was its president from 1983 to 1984. Don has been the Marblehead town historian for many years. Don would like to tell us about his memories of the early years of ESOG. Welcome, Don.
Okay. Oh. Thank God you're here.
Right? Thank you. Good afternoon. I want to make sure you're still there. My dad taught me a lesson. As a little boy, I would go to church, and if the minister spoke too long, my dad would tap his watch. And the longer he went, the higher the watch went, and the lower I went in the pew. Because my dad believed in one thing: the mind can absorb only what the seat can endure. So I've learned that as a speaker. So if I look out there and you're going like this, just like my students would do, it means time to cut it off. So those early years, they were very interesting. I remember driving to Ashland from Marblehead, getting there for the meeting lasting half an hour, and then having to drive back to Marblehead. So when all of a sudden we began talking about breaking away, it was contentious times. And David pointed this out. But they were also tough times because finances were important to us. And I think one of the first fundraisers we ever had was auctions. We'd auction off books and things like that. We depended on that and those $1, $2. And by the way, I have to tell you something. I have to apologize. As a male, I love the December meeting. All I had to do was show up, put $2 in a bucket, and fine. Everybody else, all you ladies were bringing in beautiful dishes. Boy, did I hear that from the people at the table when I sat. But it was incredible. The group of people who came together in those first meetings were really companions in terms of research. And I have to tell you, more credit to my wife. We've celebrated 50 years of marriage, and she has put up with all the paperwork that I have, and she keeps going, what are you going to do with that stuff? It's interesting because when we were dating, we'd stop in cemeteries, and that's the date we had that night. Melinda would go in and say, yeah, we spent time in cemeteries, and people went, whoa. No, we were looking at the gravestones. But it's been interesting because in the research, you live your life, you're never finished with that genealogy. There's always that one person, one thing that you're looking for. But I have to tell you, it adds to the quality of your life. Our children have their favorite ancestors. But what was fascinating was in doing the research on the Dollivers, I got to an individual known as Joseph Dolliver. He was lucky to have died in Marblehead and left a will. And he said, I, Joseph Dolliver of Stoke Abbot, Dorset, England. My oldest brother said to me, "Have you ever been there?" I said, "No, I take students on trips to England. I've never gone to Stoke Abbott." I made the decision to go. What was fascinating was my oldest brother had found an ordnance map for 1800. I overlaid it on a current ordnance map. There's the name of the farm off that will of 1688. So we went to England. We stayed at the New Inn, built in 1590, at Stoke Abbott, drove to where that farm was. There's a gate up, no trespassing. I said, "Linda, stop." I got out, opened the gate. She said, "You can't do that." I said, "Yes, I can, as long as I close the gate." We go down. There's a husband and wife and child walking. And the woman said to me, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yes, my family owned this farm 350 years ago." She said, "You don't want it back." I said, "No, we don't want it back. But here's the history of the family." The husband said, "Come in, I'll make you a cup of coffee." Well, English do not know how to make coffee. He took 2 teaspoons of instant coffee and put it in a cup and added hot water. I drank it. He said, "Would you like to see what I found?" I said, "I'd love to see what you found." Remember, I'm sitting in the house. The roof has changed, but the house was still the same. He said, "I found a Roman sword, Roman coins." And I went, "Whoa." He said, "Would you like to see my pig barn?" I said, "Pig barn?" "Yes." Now I'm in topsiders. I slosh out with him to the pig barn. The roof is being held up by Roman columns that he's dug out of the ground, mosaic floor. All of a sudden, my heart is beating faster. My family has lived on this property. 350 years ago, they made the big decision to cross the Atlantic and to come to Salem and end up in Marblehead. I was there, standing on the same property. That's something that we've learned as genealogists. There is a companionship, the past, the present, and the future. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's turn around this way. Thank you, Mr. Dolliver, for your kind words.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have a letter from Richard Trask that he would like me to read. Richard was unable to be with us today, but is well known in the Essex County community. I believe he is a walking encyclopedia. Richard has been the Danvers Town Archivist since 1972. Danvers was originally Old Salem Village. He is an expert on Salem witchcraft. If you type his name into Google, you will observe many pages of interesting sites connected to his name and historical research. Mr. Trask was an early member and speaker at ESOG. Dear Diane, thanks so much for your invitation to the ESOG 50th anniversary program. Unfortunately, I'm still recuperating from an overlong medical problem and don't get out easily. 50 years is indeed an accomplishment for the Society, which is still a vibrant, scholarly, fun, and informative organization for anyone interested in genealogy, history, and camaraderie. So many other social and educational groups from the 1970s have not had the staying power as committed or mentally committable genealogists. Though we still receive at the Danvers Archive TEG, a crackerjack publication, with which articles on Salem Village and Danvers people I often copy, I am still a proud member, but not as active with the Essex Society of Genealogists as I was years ago. I believe I was a mid-1970s supporter who attended the friendly meetings and communal lunches at the Center Church, and even was an occasional speaker. I knew Marcia before she was Lindbergh, but still a whiz-wall. She was a dynamic, tireless, friendly, and quite good friend who assisted me and supported the Danvers Archives. A talented, tenacious scholar, Marcia was a founding member of ESA and a serious writer, publishing much of her family research and producing what became very important sources for historical research, the Cemetery Guide and Handbook for New England Research. Through her and other dedicated volunteers, the Linfield Public Library became an important research in genealogical research, so that I could always tell researchers of general family history to look at the excellent resources in Linfield. More easy to get to, with a friendly staff, easy parking, etc., than traveling to Boston or even Salem. The symbiotic relationship between the library and ESOG was, and I believe still is, really impressive. So much because of Marcia and the cadre of interested people she attracted. My best to you, Diane, for the continued leadership of the Society, to Donald, David, and Helen, among the many co-conspirators and friends with whom I have been connected, and who have done important work over many years. And though I don't know if he is actually a member, I do know that the carpetbagger Paul Hogman has become an important part of the Linfield historical community. I knew and appreciated Paul's wonderful leadership and work at Menotomy from the 1970s, when I would annually visit with him in Arlington in April. I always enjoyed my visits to Linfield, the epitome of a lovely New England village, and its ancient common, beautiful library, stately center church, and slate-filled graveyard honoring the remains of Daniel Townsend and other freedom fighters. And most especially the honored relic, the fantastic and rare meeting house dating to 1714, and later enlarged and transitioned to serve for a number of other civic occasions, and used this early first period ecclesiastical structure as one of two models for my designing a copy of the Salem Village Meeting House for the film Three Sovereigns of Sarah. With this Linfield's original section with preserved King Post truss beams. Congratulations to the Essex Society of Genealogists for its 50th anniversary and for continued success in scholarship. With best regards, Richard. Let's see here. This concludes the past of ESOG. I appreciate all the memories that people have shared today. We'll move on now to the present. I grew up in Framingham, Mass, and bought a home in Lowell in 1984. Once a year, my Lowell genealogy group would take a journey to an ESOG meeting. After my second visit, I realized that I felt at home with ESOG. But why? My mom was Pennsylvania German from the late 1800s. My dad was Old New York, with a lot of Revolutionary era relatives. I had a lot to learn. I can now claim several pilgrims and many early Essex County ancestors. I even have several alleged witches. No wonder I felt at home with my fellow genealogists. In those early days, I would come to Linfield to research at the library. We ate lunch in the church basement and took in the lectures. I was soon helping Shirley Orr with the luncheon decorations and goodies. Who remembers Shirley? She was such a sweetheart. Somehow, I went from hostess to president. It's still a blur. I had no idea what the position entailed. I worked best behind the scene, but I have had a great board that has carried me on. Unfortunately, after several years of community meetings in the church basement, as had been the tradition for many years, we were forced to stop when the pandemic occurred in March of 2020. We expected it to be only a month or two. Somehow, I grabbed the flannel banner. I don't know why. Our monthly fellowship abruptly stopped. I don't know how long it took for us to say, well, we can have a meeting via Zoom. Unfortunately, we lost several of the old members who could not transition. On a positive note, we were able to pull in a lot of speakers from all over the country and even internationally. Our membership expanded to people with family from Essex County that wanted to connect with us locals. I would say now, and maybe Steve knows better, that we're probably about 50-50 now between locals and people from around the country or even internationally. Other groups have tried to do hybrid meetings. Those that I have attended don't seem to work too well. One often can't hear the local questions, and there is a lack of social interaction. Our board does not feel we have the technical ability to perform a decent hybrid meeting at this time. What suggestions does our membership have? We will ask questions in our future part of the program. We hope that you will share your thoughts. The Essex Genealogist, known as TEG, has been a highly regarded journal in the genealogy community for many years. We brought several examples today. The board does not write the articles. They come from the membership and even some non-members. We need the information that you have discovered for the TEG journal. If needed, a competent staff member will work with you to prepare your articles for publication. Over the years, we have updated our website to include the ability to listen to most of the lectures for at least a month. The monthly handout is also included. The website now has every copy of TEG for your convenience. They are also searchable. We have links to genealogy websites and have wonderful pictures showing the beauty of Essex County. Links are available to contact board members and to send in articles for review for TEG and to send in queries to the research committee. We always look for ways to improve what we have to offer to our members. Please send in your suggestions and please consider volunteering in some capacity. Thank you. Now on to the future. What is next in the area of genealogy? In the last few years, we have seen DNA research move forward in leaps and bounds. There has been an increase in digitizing and transcribing records for our research convenience. AI is now the latest trend. At this time, the board members will initiate conversations at your table and take notes. Basically, how can we help you and how can you help us to keep our society current, and vibrant in the future. And when the recorders are taking information, please take down names or some sort of contact information if possible. So, does everybody have a clipboard at their table? And there should be a pile of pencils so you can use those.
How many minutes?
I don't know. 10? Okay.